It's part 4 of the Dominions 5 campaign Abridged, where last time I was battling over this bit of land at the bottom of the map, distracted by some enemy knight chargers coming through the sea. It ultimately failed after going well when we were unable to take their main castle. We lost most of our troops, and that was pretty much the end of that because they've suddenly appeared with a vast army. Now we're on the back foot, and we're just going to sit in the sea defending and hoping they won't come down to kill us. We've got other stuff to do elsewhere though. We need to spread our dominion some more. It's starting to get a little bit thin. We are on the verge of being kicked out of the game, which I still didn't know at this point. We've got some krakens that are taking over the corner of our territory. Luckily I've already got an army ready to go and deal with that. That's going to be easy enough. I've also got a project in the top right. There is a throne of ascension right there, that little orange thing. And the actual goal of the game, which I didn't know at this point either, is to capture those thrones. So the fact I just sent some troops to go and do just that is actually a good move. Or is it? Actually, those armies I sent out died, and I couldn't find a clip of them dying. We lost the battle to take that province, so effectively nothing happened, but we'll come back to that in a minute. I've got another project in the bottom right, trying to just take some random bits of territory. However, a yellow faction down there is massing war elephants against us, so my little human army is in trouble. At least we've maintained the sea. The pink faction, the purple faction, isn't coming down to attack us yet, and I've got time to keep massing troops at the nearby castle, ready to one day contest that area again. Now here's some real good news. Our glorious overlord, Slob Blob Devanob, has finally returned. We've had all of these priests doing the summon god thing for a while, and they've done it. So we've got our special god unit back. Somebody mentioned in the comments to the first part that this isn't a very good god unit. Well, I'm just here for the Jellyfish really, it doesn't have to be very good. I think having the god unit out and about helps spread your dominion as well. So we can give it some units. It can't go on land, so right now there's not very much we can do with this as a military unit, but it can just tour around and do its own thing. We have more trouble coming in down at the bottom right. The yellow guys are trying to kick us off the land now. They've actually got us stuck inside this little fort I've built. I actually have another army in the province next door because I was randomly taking some of these foresty tiles. They're super vulnerable to counterattack, but people weren't really counterattacking them, so I'm just going to have those tiles somehow and make a little bit of money off them. We'll try and push back and take our fort. That's the important place I wanted to hold. And now here comes a second assault on the Throne of Ascension. I came back with the survivors of the last assault and a bunch more stuff to get in there and get the job done. The issue is, while the throne isn't defended by much of an army, there's this province defense system I've talked about where the enemy has put a certain amount of money into defending this province, and we can't see what army that means they have. They'll have some invisible army here. As it happens, looks like we're able to take them down, the stuff that's here, so they rout. But that's only the beginning. Because there is a fort, we now have to stand there for some unknown amount of time, then it will let us attack the fort. My attempt to relieve the siege of my own fort down at the bottom right has failed. The enemy have barely anything left alive here, but they're routing our troops by the looks of things. These inferior human troops can't get the job done, so we're still under siege. Fortunately, we have quite a lot of stuff inside the fort, and they've got like 3 guys doing the siege. They're unlikely to ever breach the walls and be allowed to attack, so I can just build up some stuff and eventually kill them later. Here was an attack coming in from this Cities faction, the green faction along my right hand side, and it's coming into the sea, so this was confirmation that this faction is able to come down into the sea as well and do stuff against us. People mentioned that this could be something to do with sacred units or spells, as I somewhat suspected, but didn't and still don't really understand. There are ways for them to come down here, and that was just such a way. The big action though was nearby at the siege of the Throne of Ascension, where a massive army appeared from the east to challenge our besieging force. And here we go, time for an all-out brawl. This will be the issue then with having to besiege a fort, because you have to wait a few turns. Stuff can show up to help, I suppose that's the point of a fort, and in this case, it helps very well. Our army doesn't even fight for very long. Looks like both sides are routing off the map, but some of the enemy's stuff remained. They're going to claim the victory here. This ends our siege, and it also killed most of my army again, so another gigantic failure. All of my attempts to push out of the sea seem to be failing so far in the top right and bottom left. Big failures. and some medium failures in the bottom right ones that don't matter quite so much. Maybe we should focus on just going in one direction or something, but it's hard to do because it takes so long to move troops across the map. Sending everything from the top to the bottom could just leave us too vulnerable to attack and take too long to do anything. So I'm pretty enthusiastic about kind of contesting all of our front lines at the same time as much as possible. But yes, that is going to make all of our attacks a bit weaker than they could be if we really focus down on doing something, which we probably should since taking the thrones is the objective. But as mentioned, I wasn't really playing with that in mind. I just thought it was a pretty thing that I should take because it helps in some way. An update on the Dominion situation, things are getting better. We've got more shiny provinces than we had before. We're starting to come back from the brink. I was also checking out the temple system a bit more. Looks like the temples kind of spread your dominion in some way. There's a lot of RNG going into things, and there's even more than I think it says here, because I did check the Dominion wiki page about this stat, and it looks really complicated basically, but something good is happening in our case, I think. Now we're skipping ahead pretty far. Not much happened, and I eventually built back a big army to contest again that Throne of Ascension. It's fortified and defended by a small army, but we've got loads of stuff here to throw into the mix from several directions. Our god is here patrolling around just to build up moral support, I suppose. I think that might spread Dominion as well. Let's see what the results are in the next turn. Well, actually, we've got a couple of bad bits of news at the start of our results here, because in the same turn I made this attack, the purple guys finally made their move. They were quiet for a long time, but suddenly they have started smashing out of their land territory and taking our seas, and they have tons of stuff. Here was a strange situation where they've got one dragon that's just taken over one of our territories. I thought, well, that's probably not too much to deal with, but they also have some big armies sneaking about at the bottom of the map, and who knows what else that we can't see. So while I was building up to try and contend against them, they've obviously built up faster than me, so we remain in a bad situation down there. But we did successfully capture the area around the fort up here. Didn't even need to look at the battle report because it just said that you've started capturing the fort or started besieging the fort, meaning we probably won, and I didn't really care how. We need to get out of the territory to some extent because there aren't enough supplies to maintain our besieging force. Aside from that, we'll just storm the place and see if we can take over. I still don't think there's any way to know what's in the fort. We just have to go for it and hope our pile is enough. Now I wanted to put together a small army to take down that dragon. I thought just sending the stuff that's nearby should be enough because, while it's a dragon, it's only one thing, or so I thought. That's very short-sighted of me given how this game works. We have taken another territory from the city's people, the one next to the Throne of Ascension, so we've got our little buffer there. Here is news though that we have just lost 80% of the army formed up to take the dragon place, because a massive enemy army was also there, so clearly they moved stuff off the land into this sea tile during their turn. And this is just the issue with a game that has simultaneous turns. You give an order, and you can't change the order based on the actual outcome of what's happening. We can't tell our troops to not attack after seeing the enemy actually have 300 troops. They're going to do it anyway, and that's not going to be the best idea, unfortunately. So we have actually taken down like 2/3 of their army. This is something, but the loss of this large group will be harder for us to get back than it will for the enemy, their losses. I think that's probably a bad thing happening right there. Here though is a good thing. This is our attack on the fort in the province with the Throne of Ascension. Handily enough, there's not that much inside. We even have some ranged units now because I've been recruiting horse archers for our land army so they can snipe away at the things on the walls. We also storm the walls and take them. So that's starting to look good, but I was more concerned with what's happening down here. I wondered why all of these armies suddenly attacked. I thought they couldn't attack me. The whole "can things go under the sea" mystery continues. But that mystery is going to be solved for a while because of this. There's this global enchantment system. Somebody somewhere has cast a spell that allows all land units on the map to go underwater. So whatever defense we had from being in the sea, it's over by the looks of things. Now anybody can come down, and I think that's why the purple faction suddenly started this offensive. They realized they could come down here and just take us out, and that's what they're doing. We've still got our big ball of forces around our castle, and we're going to have to try and convince the enemy to attack our strong points here. They could go around us, a very dangerous situation. What I need to know is there any way to undo this global enchantment? Feel free to tell me in the comments. It will of course be far, far too late, but it's nice to know. One thing that came of my realization that the enchantments might be doing something is that I decided to poke around in the magic menu myself. I haven't cast any global spells yet, or world map spells I should say. Well, there's me casting one. I'm going to awaken the algae men. Will this help? Well, no, basically it's just going to give me a couple of random extra units in this area. But I think in that system somewhere, there's probably loads of stuff we could be doing right now that would be really helpful. Well, I didn't look that much or do that much. I think I'll go back to that later and try to do some magic that might help. Now, you might note, I haven't quote-unquote claimed the Throne of Ascension. It says they have to claim the throne to get some special effects. I thought I had, but some of you may already know, that claiming a throne is a specific action that you have to do. Either your god or one of your head priests or something has to go and talk to the throne to activate its magical effects. I did not know this, thinking I'd already done it, but maybe one day that will happen. Obviously I know about it now because I later discovered it after looking more closely at those tooltips. At the start of the next turn, we have the start of a long trend. Some of our guys are getting assassinated. That's not going to stop anytime soon. That's going to become a major problem. The AI decided to start assassinating all of my characters all of a sudden, and it's just going to carry on. And I actually still don't know what to do about that, so that's a hint as to how long that's going to be a problem for. Well, we've actually got some good news in the form of this little battle. The purple guys tried to push further into the sea, but a group of mostly trash mer troops actually turned them back. That was surprising. So we've defended a province, although we did lose another province down there to them, just a barely defended one. Here was an interesting battle up near the throne. My choke point I've got, stacked with all of the surviving troops, faces off against some mantis men and manages to turn them back. They're just going to sit there, well, forever now basically, and try to defend that area against the green faction who'll probably want their throne back. And there's the province we lost to the purple faction. So our big stack here is increasingly surrounded, but it's also increasingly big. I summoned a sea serpent, which proved difficult to use because there are restrictions on who can command it and what it can do and such. Well, I've actually got some troops coming down to help out, finally. I'm going to start moving things from the top to the bottom. As mentioned earlier, this is a slow process. It's also an incredibly tedious process, which is why I don't really want to do it. It's the same thing with moving spies and priests around. You can only move them one space at a time, and then you have to remember to find them again in the next turn and tell them to make their next move, which makes the turns take an extremely long time. I'm spending like 10 to 15 minutes per turn, and be extremely annoying, and I'm very paranoid now about constantly forgetting things here and there and doing little projects, then coming back to play the game a different time and forgetting what I was supposed to be doing, and a bunch of guys get forgotten in the corner and don't do their mission. It's a terrible game for that sort of stuff. I really think this game was designed with like hot seating in mind, where you'd play one turn and that's like your session. So you'd sort of be intended to come back the next turn and check all of your provinces again to see what your characters need to do. But in practice, playing it for like an hour at a time, which is what I usually do, tends to lead to both a lot of very long turns where you're not really doing anything, you're just re-giving orders you were thinking about before, and forgetting stuff as mentioned. It also means I'm getting through footage really fast because I'm cutting out most of what's been happening in this last clip, just organising things and making the long-winded preparations to do our big moves. And with that in mind, I'll just look at one more turn for this part. There were a number of battles taking place. Here was one where the green guys are going to take some advantage from the enchantment allowing them to come under the sea, although some of them could come under the sea before already, as we saw. Well, they're pushing down into a bit of the sea that's less defended than other ones with a bunch of stuff, a nice variety of things here. Well, luckily we have the Province Defense Force, just a pile of trash and a couple of commanders. Those commanders get swarmed by the wolves, but the trash quickly takes them out, and then it's just a brawl over here, and it turns out in the end we win, as we already knew actually. Here's another battle taking place in the Western Seas, where again a pile of mermen trash troops is somehow able to hold off another purple guy's attack. I don't really know how we won this battle. It looks like the enemy are all over the field, we've lost everything, but the enemy are also routing, so our last couple of guys kill a few of them and chase them off the field. We successfully defend another area. And there's another battle also in the Western Seas. This one was a bit bigger. I've got one tile that was fortified, and that's the one they're attacking here. This time they've brought a dragon into the mix. I think this dragon might actually be their god. I'm not quite sure because it's not all that indicated. But we're able to swarm over their forces and take them out. The dragon is trying to rout, but we're already all around it. It gets stuck. And we have a similar situation to what we saw earlier in the campaign, trying to fight against regenerating health. This time though, we do the business and take that guy out. Whether it was their god or not, killing the dragon will certainly help us out. Looks like we're out of supplies up here at our front line. We've stacked it up too heavily, need to be a bit less gung-ho about defending this area, but it's going well so far. So we've got the green guys under control, and the purple guys, well, it's a bit of a dodgy situation still. Their attacks are somehow failing in the west, and that's saving us big time. Their main force over here actually has gone invisible because it's besieging a fort, and when it's doing that, for some reason they don't appear on the map anymore. We though have now massed our counter-attacking force. It's very disorganized and spread between lots of stuff, but my god is going to come down and try to do the undersea battles for us, while our main force with amphibious capabilities still waits for that opportunity to get back onto the land. It's surrounded by enemy armies right now, so it's a dangerous time to move out. But I've still got my heart set on taking this area of land if we can. So we'll try and organize this grand project in the next part.